Namaste. Good evening and welcome. We will continue our study of Taittiriya Upanishad, reflecting on the essence of the first chapter and also making headway, catching up where we left off in second chapter, Brahmanandavali, the bliss of Brahman. The central theme of tonight's teaching is on the mysterious element of grace, how that's operating and working on our life, and the message of Upanishad in the beginning of second chapter on allowing that grace to inflood and fill our lives. So before we get into that, we'll start in a prayerful way. I'll invite you to get comfortable, relax, perhaps deepen your breath, and let the eyes gently close as we start with a prayer. As we reflect on the Upanishad, we have to be like a mirror. That's the meaning of reflection. And that's done in a relaxed, not go-getting attitude, but an openness, a curiosity, a willingness to hear what the words of the Upanishads say and allow those to work on us. Therefore, we chant Om. Om Sadashivasamārambhām Shankaracharya-madhyamām Asmaracharya-paryantāम् Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Bhararayanam Sutra Bhashakratau Vande Bhagavantau punah punah Ishvaro Guruvatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyakta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu mavid vishavai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace be, peace be, peace be. Relax, relax, relax. Hari Om. So last week was our first session on Taittiriya Upanishad, coming back to exploring this text and hopefully coming to completion on it. But there's no rush in the study of Upanishad, with the subject matter being oneself, an ever-present existential fact. And looking into that takes some time, some patience, some compassion, some openness. So that first chapter we saw was called Shikshavali, science of pronunciation, which indicates the presence of the teacher and the beginning students in the Gurukulam, the students sharing a space with the Guru, practicing brahmacharyam, conserving their energy, and developing their brain, maybe up to the age of 26 or 28 or so. So we did our best last week to compress all of these beautiful mantras found in that first chapter to 5 main points. So that first point started with this Shantipata, or the opening mantra, which was a prayer to the breath, the cosmic breath governing our life, and expressed and experienced intimately at the base of our nostrils as the incoming and outgoing breath. So there's a prayer to the breath as a living expression of a word called Brahman. The Upanishad uses this special word called Brahman, meaning God or truth, which we'll explore more in second chapter, hopefully this evening. So the first point was, how do I experience or feel that connectivity with the universe? And that was through focus and reverence, a kind of devotion towards the life force governing this body, mind, and ego, the breath. The second point was that in this spiritual pursuit, the necessity for a guide, or guru, we also saw the importance of that too. And we'll continue to explore all these topics as they're so vast as we go along. That was the second point. The third point was to be a devotee. We find lots of different meditations in the first chapter that help us feel our relationship with the world around us. Recognizing that our sense organs and sense perceptions are not even possible without a context, and that context is given. So that makes us more open and relaxed, and feeling that we're part of the fabric versus a strand left out. And the fourth point was that some discipline and regularity with that is necessary, and also the capacity to recall or remember the good parts of life and the good things that Guru has taught us. The way the Upanishad calls that is Medha Shakti. So there's a particular mantra for that. But lastly, the fifth point was a profound and pretty deep subject called Yajna, the flow or order of giving and receiving. So this first chapter, Shikshavali, ends with what was a convocation address, a kind of address where the guru is gathering up all the students, bright and inspired and ready to send them off into the world to make something positive of their lives. So I just wanted to chant one of those mantras to close. So you can just listen to this, and it doesn't matter the whole meaning of all the different words. Just listen to the sound of the mantra. Vedam anuchacharyo ante vasinam anushasti satyam vada dharmam chara swadhyaya anma pramadaha acharya prayam dhanamahritya prajatantum ma vyavachetsehe satyana pramatitavyam dharmana pramatitavyam kushalana pramatitavyam Bhutyena pramatitavyam swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na pramatitavyam. So Guru's addressing all the students, giving them the final essence of what it means to be a student of Vedic wisdom. So here the Guru is saying, speak the truth, satyam vada. Organize your thought and action for the long-term good, dharmam chara. Swadhyaya. Also review. Take some time to do self-critique and review. Look at your past. Make a list of what your day looked like, how you plan to improve and upgrade yourself. Priyam dhanam. This is surprising. Earn wealth. Generate income. Therefore, you can thrive in the society. And then also have the great leisure and joy of giving back, being able to contribute and share your wealth. Priyam dhanam. Beautiful value. And lastly, prajatantum, have children. Or another interpretation is that keep that tradition alive. Whether you are a family woman, family man, and you keep that flow of energy going, learning what it means to humble ourselves and create offspring and then train and then share their skills and talents, or whether you stay at an ashram and become a guru yourself and share the wisdom that you're learning and have students. Therefore, keep the tradition alive. So this was the message that the guru gives. And the idea there is that before the students burst out into society, they've got mental strength. They've got a deep kind of willpower and determinative clarity that allows them to express themselves, not by always begging for rights and having that feeling of being anxious to lose them, but rather, having that feeling of, I have something to do. I have a duty and a calling, and I'll keep with that and not swerve from it. So satyam vada, dharmam chara, swadhyayanma pramadaha. Acharya yapriyam dhanamahritya prajatam tumma vyavachetsi. It's a beautiful way to close. So, though the point of that is that the students at this stage of their development are getting completely integrated, living an integral or integrated life. That means that their desire, their subtle thought, the words that they're uttering, and then the actions that flourish are in harmony with one another. There's no there's no gap there, or no confused thought that's separate from or out of alignment with what they're doing. I would say that's because they've developed a deeper at homeness with themselves, or a deeper kind of conviction which can organize their thought, their word, and their action. So there's lots of values. I'm not going through all of them. There's so many. We can make list after list. I was trying to pith everything down in the last class, since this is all review. And there's other recordings on YouTube that you can go and follow. But the key there is that though there's so many values spoken about in the Upanishad, what's more important than just trying to memorize and learn all these different values like truth or non-stealing or non-violence or no adultery and all that, is rather to see what's underneath of them. What's the truth underneath them? The point of that is that when we see that there's a value in feeling at home or at rest with oneself, then all of these other good qualities manifest as a result of that. They become more spontaneous and natural to us. So, for example, when I lie, then I feel uncomfortable with myself. And that prompts me to continue that pattern, to cover it up. And the more I cover, the more confused I feel. The more I feel that I have to watch my back. Therefore, I don't feel at home with myself anymore. I feel estranged or extricated. So, when one sees a value of that deep, restful feeling within, then all these other values make sense and become really clear. So, you have that kind of conviction of feeling at home. So I also wanted to chant the last mantra of the first chapter because it's quite interesting. And I'll encourage you to join me in this. We can chant together. So we saw that the first opening Shantipata or mantra was a peace invocation to all these natural forces or gods, and also to that breath as Brahman. And there it was a kind of statement where the student was crying out, I feel that my breath is an expression of this Brahman. And the student also there said, may that cosmic breath protect me. And then also may it protect the speaker, meaning the guru. So it's interesting and really refreshing to see that this same mantra comes at the very end of the chapter, except there's a slight tweak in which you find that the student is expressing the gratitude. It seems that after the class is complete and the study is finished, they felt that they were protected, they were taken care of, and they have a kind of confidence in which they say, I really declare that this breath for sure is an expression of the truth. So I'll chant this, and if you'd like, you can repeat after me. I'll create some spaces just so you can bring out your voice and practice a little Sanskrit. Shanno Mitra Shambarunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indra Brahaspatihi Shanno Vishnu Rurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva pratyaksham. Now, here's where it changed. Brahmavarisham, Ridhamavarisham, Satyamavarisham, Tanmamavid, Tadvaktadamavid, Avimam, Aviit Vaktarm. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So a slight twist there. Avadisham, I have declared that this Brahman is verily that rhythm or order, is Satyam, truth, and as my breath. And then also Avid, you have that Ishwara manifesting as the breath, which is dancing in my nostrils. Avid has protected me and also has protected the teacher. So this ends with a kind of singing of praise or gratitude that I was taken care of. So look at the culture. That's so important. You know, so many times we ask for God to bless us in so many ways, mostly picking up where we feel lacking. And even more popular is to just pray for our immediate needs that we feel that we're stuck. But do we ever pray when God gives us those things? When we feel that we're blessed? Sometimes we forget. We forget about God as soon as everything comes back to comfort and leisure. So student was not only feeling confident and then at home and then rendered brighter to go jump out into society and be a shining example of earning wealth and sharing and committing to their duty, but concludes with a prayer, ends by saying, I feel blessed. Let me not forget God in this process. So, Ritam Varishami, Satyam Avarisham, Tanmamavi, Tadvaktaramavid, Avin Ma, Avid Vaktaram, Om, peace be, peace be, peace be, Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. So that's a very beautiful way to conclude. So that first chapter is called Shikshavali. Lots of interesting things in there, but we are continuing on to second chapter. Second chapter is really the heart of the text itself, and it gives the full philosophical vision of what we as Hindus feel is the means to light and love or liberation. And surprisingly, it begins with a Shantipatha, a peace invocation. And this one we're all familiar with. Everyone here knows this and has heard it before. It begins with Om Sahana Vavatu. We always chant this before the class. So this comes from this Taittiriya Upanishad. So I'll chant this and you can repeat after me too. And why all the chanting? Well, one, it's just so much fun. But also, two, the Rishi says by just chanting these mantras, we purify our mind. So not only are we learning how to bring out our voice, connect with those energies, set the right intention, but that also creates a mental purity by which you can reflect properly. So, Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahanao Bhunaktu, Sahaviryan Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So this we don't need to go into so much, but the gist of it is, may us both together be protected. That could be me and the Lord, or it could be me and the Guru. May we be bhunaktu, nourished. Sahaviryam, may we also be energized. Tejasvinavaditamastu, and have that kind of brilliance as a result from studying properly. Ma vidvishavahi. And also, vidvishavahi, we have the tendency sometime when we're in student-teacher relationship or also amongst peers to quarrel or to have conflicting thoughts or jealousy or animosity. these kind of feelings can cut the inquiry short and stop us from reaching the full splendor of that knowledge. So may we not quarrel. May we operate in a space of harmony and peace. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So this begins the second chapter called Brahmanandavali. Following this, we have what I would call a mantra of grace, or a profound proclamation that you want to sing from the rooftops. So I'm going to chant this for you. And if you like, we could also chant it together. Om Brahma Vedapnoti Param Tadeshabhyukta Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman Soshnute Sarvan Kaman Saha Brahmana Vipaschateti. This is a very famous mantra, so let's chant it together. Om Brahma Vedapnoti Param Tadeshabhyukta Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman Soshnute Sarvan Kamaan Saha Brahmana Vipaschateti. Nice. So the whole essence of this entire study could be compressed in this one particular mantra. And it starts by saying Om. Om is a magic healer, a master key. So Om could mean listen up. Something profound is about to be unfolded. And what is that? Brahma Vita Apnoti Param. There are 4 words used there. And the first one is Brahman. So Brahman is such an important word. The entire Upanishadic literature talk about this Brahman. Why Brahman is that word itself creates a kind of a state of alertness immediately. When you understand the definition of Brahman as Brahatva, an unqualified big, or an ever-expanding force. So when you hear that, it doesn't prompt you to go seek an experience, but rather makes you so alert and awareful. What is the Upanishad talking about? What kind of Brahman is this? Where do I find that? Or how do I know it? So where and how to experience are sometimes questions that student has to get converted with the help of a guru, and how to know, how to recognize. So that Brahman word is a key word. The other thing that's really interesting about our tradition itself in the Advaita Vedanta is that it's less so self-inquiry, though a lot of time we talk about that. It's more so an inquiry or reflection upon what Upanishad's even talking about. So we take these texts with a certain reverence and sacredness, and we've seen already that we use them as a pramana, or a means to know the truth of ourself, the truth of the world, and the truth of God. And as a result of that, we're more concerned with looking into the nature of what this Brahman is, using the help of the scripture. So that's really important, because sometime in modern circles, the whole practice is just asking, who am I? You're just supposed to sit with that. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? You know, you're just muttering that. And it's not leading anywhere. It's just making us sleepy. Or it's also sometimes can make us a slave of experience. Keep on chasing new experiences and new tinglies, which is nothing wrong with that inherently if it leads us to a state of love and a state of inclusion, but often cannot be. So that who am I question is interesting, because without the help of a guide or without the help of a scripture, I is the very thief. The one doing the inquiry is the one who's missing the bigger picture of themselves. It's something like entrusting the key with the thief, trying to look into yourself with the help of yourself. It's just like trying to, plumb the depths of the mind, and you find that things are not as they seem. It's very confusing and messy in there. There's this interesting story that kind of relates to that, where there was a Duryodhana. He was an eldest son of a blind king, and he had a kind of rivalry with the Pandavas, cousins. And these cousins separated and established a kind of palace by a celestial architect in Indraprastha. That was the name of the place. There's a kind of mysterious palace that was full of all sorts of tricks. So Duryodhana in his royal robes goes there to check out the place with a kind of arrogance and feeling of pride and proving himself in front of these cousins. So when he goes in there, it seems that there's a solid marble floor that looks so polished and clean. And as he takes a step in there, he plunges into water. What looked so solid was suddenly nothing but water. So he plunges into there and tries to keep his cool, bring himself out of that. And instead of laughing it off, it creates that more deeper anger and frustration in him. Then, then he brings himself, kind of composes himself, though he's wreathing inside. He gets out of that, and then he sees what looks like a pool of water. So he lifts up his tunic, hunches himself up. Then he goes to plant his foot into this water and ends up smacking right into the concrete. So it's a trick. Similarly, there was a part in that story where he goes to enter into this door and then runs right into the marble. And the court members are, doing their best to keep their giggling controlled. And so instead of making him humble and laughing it off and brushing it off, that created a seed of even more envy and frustration and anger in him. So that's an amazing story. There's so many great stories in our literature, like the Mahabharata. But that's a great story of what it's like sometime when we explore our own mind. We think that we understand, and then suddenly we're fooled. Suddenly we're led astray in so many different directions, or what seems so solid, so stable, is actually just fluff. Or what seems so fluffy sometimes is so important. So that mystery, the point of saying that is that a guide is necessary, and the help of scripture in the inquiry is very important. So what does this mantra say? It's so profound. It says, the knower, Om, the knower of Brahman, Brahmavid, apnoti param, attains the supreme. So the first sentence is, the knower of Brahman attains the supreme. So there's 4 words there. Brahman, that's the first word. Vida means knower. Apnoti means attains. And param means the supreme. So the knower of Brahman attains the supreme. So supreme, that last word, is a kind of deep philosophical word. Supreme. What do you mean by supreme? We have several definitions for this in our tradition. One is, supreme means that which is free from space, time, object bound definition. Desha kala vastu parichedam. It doesn't have any, it's free from time, a certain placement. It's free from being an object, something that's bounded. It's free from any kind of spatial reference. So when you hear that, what does that mean? It doesn't satisfy any kind of definition of anything that you know. For example, if I say pot, that has a certain space. It can occupy a certain time in our memory, something that we can relate to. So that word refers to a thing, and that thing can come back into my mind and I can objectify that. But when you use the word param, supreme, it doesn't point anywhere. So The interesting thing about that is that when you think about what supreme is, you can't help but come back home. I seems to be the core that you are. I seems to be the only thing or only essence which fulfills that kind of definition. Also, Brahmavid apnoti param. The knower of Brahman attains the supreme. That also implies that this supreme we're talking about is Brahman. That Brahman is beyond time, space, object, boundaries. And I'm feeling that that can't be anywhere else apart from me. So we're taking several leaps and bounds here. So, how is it that the Upanishad says knowing Vita, that word Vit means to know, knowing Brahman means attaining that Brahman, or knowing the Supreme is attaining the Supreme? The deep mystery and grace here is that when the Upanishad says that you know it, you are it, the meaning of that is that you already are the Brahman, that that is your very nature. Hence, knowledge equals gain, which is completely radical to all other form of knowledge that we're accustomed to. All of our other knowledge pursuits fall into what's called chodhya chodakam. It's a technical thing, but it's not that complex. It's super simple. It means that what I know is separate from me. So there's a space or gap between me and what I seek or what I know. For example, I'll give you a very simple example. I want to go take a trip and fly to a different state. So I have knowledge of that. And I also see that there's a boundary or a gap between me and my destination. So what do I have to do to reach that destination? Not only do I have to know about it and be equipped with the means to reach there, like getting my boarding pass, having the bucks to afford that, catching the cab at the right time, making sure I have all my baggage. So not only do I have the knowledge there, but I also have to take action. So knowledge plus action equals gain. So that's called chodhya chodakam. So there's several slips there between the cup and the lip. I could, fall sleepy and then miss the flight, or not pack something and then be soured by the experience, or perhaps, fall sick or something. So there's several gaps there, but with some grace, we can reach our destination. Here, in this knowledge is different. A second type of knowledge where the knowledge equals gain. The technical term for that is called bodhya bodhakam. Knowing is gaining. It's something like having my glasses pushed up on the top of my head and then searching everywhere for them, fretting and fuming about where my glasses were. And by somebody announcing, "Hey, Advait, by the way, did you realize they're sitting on top of your head?" That knowledge is gain because it's already with me. Upanishad wants to show you that your nature is already love, peace, and light, and everything that you ever wish to seek for. But you're not recognizing that. So therefore, you have to sit back and relax and listen. Okay, so param means boundlessness. Param means love. Param means happiness. And that's ultimately what I want to be, a happy, loving, free person. But how to be? Upanishad shows you that's your very nature. It's something to be known. Brahmavita, something to be known. So the meaning of that is that the gap between me and the ultimate reality or param that I seek is a matter of ignorance, not recognizing who I am in essence. Then it says, what is that Brahman? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Many of us are familiar with uh, Satchidananda. We hear that in the study of Advaita Vedanta, Satchidananda. So here it is same meaning, but slightly different change of the word. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam means truth. Truth is defined as that which is present in past, present, and future, at all three periods of time. That which remains is called Sat. Satyam. Jnana means consciousness, the very light by which you can know anything. And Anantam means joy or limitless. Anantam. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. That's the nature of this Brahman. Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman. Whoever knows this Brahman within that Guhayam, that cave of the heart, it says, whoever recognizes that Brahman existing within one's heart, that subtle space, Parame Vyoman, in that Akasha, that field of the heart. So Oshnute Sarvan Kama Ansaha Brahmana Vipaschateti. One who sees this, it seems that they attain all their desires in recognizing the Brahman. So that sounds pretty funny. I have so many desires and passions. How can just knowing something, how can knowing Brahman resolve and give me all my desires? The meaning of that is that what you're desiring, the outcome that you hope to get as a result of fulfilling your desire, is to be a happy person, to be a free person, to feel that expansiveness. But what is expansiveness? What is freedom? What is happiness? It's not a thing. It has no size or space or dimensionality to it. It is the very source of who you are, which is experienced in the heart as I am. Before you predicate that, take a deep breath. I am. Enjoy just saying that periodically. I am. That I is more than enough. That I is everything. Please know that. So that's kind of that statement, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That statement is a great proclamation that we have to remember at least sometime in the year, reflecting on those words and seeing where they land. They don't land in anything, meaning they reveal who you are as the spirit or as the Brahman. They reveal your big, boundless nature. So that Brahman, that Brahatva Brahman, that ever expansive field that you are, or presence that you are, it seems that Brahman wants to play. This is experienced whenever we feel happy or whenever we feel love or inclusive. What do? You spontaneously want to share. In fact, it's hard not to want to share, not to want to create, or have that kind of felicity to want to explore new avenues and express yourself in many, many ways. The way that the rishis envisage the nature of this world is as an expression of that joy. The Brahman, it seems, is so full within itself or within herself or his self. He wants to play and express in many ways, which is described here. I'll chant this. Tasmad va etasmad atmana akasha sambhutah akashad vayu vayoragnihi agnerapah adbhyah prathivi prativya oshadhayah oshadhibhyo annam anat purushah. So this next mantra, from that profound statement, the knower of the Brahman attains the supreme. And where is that supreme to be found? In my heart. What is reverberating in your heart? And your heart means basically your deepest conviction. Who do you think that you are? Who is that light behind your eyes? We saw that in our Sunday class, Kena. It seems that my whole sense perception, which is just a mass amount of data, is organized and presented to me. Who's behind that? Who's behind my listening or my seeing? Who's behind my thought? That's answered here. There's a conscious presence or being that you are, the Brahman, which is lighting up our experience. And from that Brahman, the whole world unravels. Tasmad va e tasmad atmana. From that Brahman, Vai etasmat atmanaha, which is verily this Atman. The Upanishad puts that from that Brahman that we're talking about, which is none other than the very core of who you are, the Atman. It seems Akasha Sambhudaha. Brahman puts on the mask of space, creates some dimensionality in all directions, space and time. Akasha Sambhudaha. And that Brahman, which is non separate from the space, being born of itself, Akashad Vayuhu, air comes, the wind element comes. Vayoragnihi. Brahman's not satisfied with that. Brahman wants to have form, so light comes. Agnihi, fire. Agnerāpaha, then the waters come. Adbhyaf Prathivi, then the earth. So the whole element structure is non separate from an expression of Brahman. Prathivi, Prathivya Oshadhaya. Plants and herbs come. Oshadhibhyo annam anat purushaha. Then you have sentient beings like you and I sitting here, eating the food and being consumed by the food. But really, we forget that we're a child of God. We lost that feeling of holiness. Upanishad showing us that this whole thing is one expression of truth. So excited and eager to play. So that's a universal principle. There's a kind of veiling totally to project and express itself. So Brahman's infinite. You are infinite. Infinite doesn't mean infinite number. Numbers are divided between other numbers. Infinite series of things always has divisions between other series or other kinds of sets. So when I use the word infinite, infinite means that there's no space, time, object boundedness. Where is that? I. You can never reduce yourself to a thing. You are transcending being a thing. You are not an object for people to manipulate and control. You are a presence, and that presence is love because it's non separate from any other thing. So the truth of anything is you, but you are free from being a thing. There's a special relationship there. But how does that boundless infinite consciousness that you are, or the Brahman, express through all this multiplicity? Brahman does that by putting on the foundation. Therefore, you can add the highlights and the makeup, the extra lashes and then the lipstick and then the color and all of that. So that's a universal principle. First, you have to cover, avaranam. Then that covering provides a perfect condition to vikshepa, to project and create new. But in that projection, Brahman has not lost its identity, has not forgotten its full nature or big nature. So this is just pure play, pure fun. So anat purushaha, from that supreme space, all the way comes down to you and I, an individual purusha, or the feeling of being a sentient being. Now the question comes, okay, I think I understand, but I don't feel quite satisfied with that statement. I feel like it's a little bit too much for me to swallow. That I'm all of this. I'm the whole universe. That doesn't make any sense to me. Can you lead me step by step? And Mother Shuddhiti says, yes, of course. I will always take your hand and guide you every step of the way. So the yogi's journey to reaching that pure, pristine I, feeling that I is not sullied or soiled by what I think or what I've done in the past. How do you recognize that? That process is called viveka, tattva viveka, or here in this case, panchakosha viveka. It seems that there's 5 different universal mistake that we make of missing the true pure nature of who we are expressed as I am, and then latching or identifying on with all that we perceive or all that we take around us. So the process of going back home or recognizing the pure nature of that is called panchakosha viveka, where we look at 5 different ways in which we can get hung up or stuck or feeling a little confused about who we are, and seeing through that, seeing through the confusion and recognizing the clear nature of who we are. So this Brahmananda Valley, the second chapter, introduces this Panchakosha model, this model of recognizing um, five universal places where we can get confused. So those koshas we'll look into. They're Annamaya Kosha, the physical body, Pranamaya Kosha, the physiological system or energy system, how the vital winds express themselves in our body. Then there's also Manomaya Kosha. This is quite deeper and more pervasive. It's the field of the mind, which includes all of your emotional landscape and your memories. Then there's Vijnanamaya, your conviction and your sense of being an agent, a conscious person who acts and who wills, and also who experiences. And then lastly, Anandamaya Kosha, the sheath of bliss. Sometimes we feel that we just don't know, and there's a freedom in that. Or sometimes we may feel that we get various degrees of happiness as a result by interacting with our loved ones or enjoying a good meal, varying degrees of that. But that's not lasting. And something in us feels like, I want that lasting peace. I want this to be a permanent experience, a deep sense of fulfillment. So, Anandamaya Kosha, also the feeling of experiential happiness, which definitely reveals that being natural to us, our natural state. So these pancha koshas, what we'll do is next week when we meet, we'll do a total dive into all these five koshas. And then after that, we are up to speed with where we left off. So we'll go step by step and look into this. Each kosha here is considered a bird flying to the truth. And so the bird has a head, a tail, two wings, and a trunk. Pucham Pratishtha. We'll see those mantras. I'm going to give us a chance to chant them as well. And we'll go step by step. And as a result of that, what you'll see is it's so clear that you're pure, ever free. You'll see that I in its pristine nature. And what's to be known there about the I is revealed by Upanishad. Upanishad says that I is the whole. The I happens to be the same I behind mine, the same light behind my eyes and my ears, my actions, and in fact, the actions of all bodies and all things. So that profundity Upanishad will bring. So next week, what we'll do is when we meet, we'll ascend to that. And when we do that too, that statement, Brahmavid apnoti param, the knower of Brahman attains the supreme, becomes clearer and clearer, like the processing of a film with the patience, faith, determined outlook, hope in our heart. Suddenly the picture becomes very clear. There's nothing but God, which I am. There's all God, 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 inside, outside, everywhere. That vision dawns in our hearts, that cave of the heart, nihitam guhayam. Then we can really say we're at peace, that we are resting. It is well with my soul. So we'll close here with a prayer, starting off prayerful, prayerful in between, prayer to close. And that means a prayerful life, a life where we have that kind of trustful surrender that this resonates with me, that I am whole and I lack nothing. So let me commit to that and see it through. Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om.